somebody knows the Prophet ﷺ is a true prophet and they reject that, that's not a good place to be in. You know, so the Mufassirun say that those are for the previous, before the advent of the Prophet ﷺ. That those who followed previous prophets of their time, every group is raised up with their prophets. Imam al-Ghazali, I think of all the ulama, has the most nuanced view, because he argues that people who have lived amongst Muslims and been shown true Islam, they will be taken into account. But he said people that haven't, or have been shown negative Islam, and they reject a negative version of Islam, which is why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man adha li dhimmiyan fa ana khasmuhu yawm al-qiyamah." Whoever harms one of the people, the protected minorities in my community, like Jews and Christians or Hindus, because the Muslims accepted Hindus and Zoroastrians according to the Maliki madhab. And I think that was even though the Shafi'is don't have that opinion, but the Hanafis and the Malikis took that opinion. So they took, even the Mushrikun, except on the Arabian Peninsula, but even the Mushrikun could live under the Muslims. There's not an idea that you have to, this thing. Even umirtu an uqatil an-nas hatta yashhadu an la ilaha illallah. That hadith is khas bin Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not it's khas. It's from the Prophet's khasa'is. The Arabian Peninsula was a special place for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there couldn't be la yajtami'u dinani fi jazirat al-arab. And then the Jazeera, even like people say, oh well, in the Gulf now they have non-Muslims living there. I mean, Muslims can come in temporary. They can't be permanent residents. But also the Gulf, not all the ulama consider that part of the Arabian Peninsula that the Prophet was sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about. Most say it's the Hijaz. There's different opinions about that. So, but I mean, I knew a scholar. I mean, he was a good scholar. He did his PhD on Ghazali, and I gave a talk at his university, and we were on our way to the airport, and he said, what's the Ash'ari opinion about somebody who knows Islam is true, but then they never say the Shahada? So I knew that he was talking about himself. I just said, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Right. Yeah. It's like, Imam Muhammad al-Ghazali, the Egyptian, he was asked, like, what's the hukm of tariq al-salah? Because there's a khilaf. Like the Hanbalis say, if you leave the prayer, you're not a Muslim anymore. Right. Like if you don't pray, even if you just leave it out of laziness. That's the strictest position. The other three Imams, they say, لا نكفر بذنب لا بتركه ولا بفعله. We don't make takfir of a dhanb either through tark or fi'l. Like the kaba'ir, that's the Khawarij did that. So he was asked, what's the hukm of somebody who leaves the prayer? He said, حكمك فيه أن تأخذه إلى المسجد. Like your hukm with him is take him to the masjid, get him to pray again. Right. Yeah. So people are too concerned about where other people are going. It's just a big problem in our community. It is a big problem. Yeah. We should be more considerate about where we're going. Allahu a'lam where everybody else is going. People, the kafirun, according to the Quran, are going to hell. But if you read the kafirun in the Quran, they're puffed up, they're full of pride, they hate the truth, they do takdeeb, they have istihza. I mean, look at the qualities of the kuffar, and then ask yourself about people around you that you see that aren't like that. And maybe our fault is that we've been such bad exemplars, people are no longer attracted to Islam. Because there was a time when everybody who became to know the Muslims wanted to become Muslim. I mean, there still are a lot of people that become Muslim just from living with Muslims because they see the good Islam. But then there's other people that are very alienated from it. I mean, I had a professor of religious studies who was a beautiful man, he's a really, really good man. But he had a very negative experience on the Allenby Bridge. It was during one of the horrible periods, but he had a very negative experience with Muslims. And it really tainted his view of Islam. And, we had a lot of conversations about it. And he said, I've been forced to really reassess my Islam. I had the same experience with a a black minister from Philadelphia, who for him, the Islam was the mafia, the Muslim mafia in Philadelphia, because there was this kind of Muslim mafia in Philadelphia, and that's how he viewed Islam. He just thought that was Islam. So there's a lot of people that really have a negative view of Islam, and it's our challenge is, how do we break those barriers down? You know, how do we show them what real Islam is? I mean, part of it is just, one of the hallmarks of Islam is it's beautiful. It's not an ugly religion.
Right.
All traditional Islam is beautiful. Our architecture is beautiful. Our clothes were beautiful. Food was beautiful. Food presentation was beautiful. Everything the Muslims did, their calligraphy, nobody's matched Muslim calligraphy. Nobody. I mean, you go and look at somebody asked Titus Burckhardt, you know, if you could point to Islam, what would you point to? He said the Taj Mahal. You know, and on the one hand, that's not entirely true, but there's some truth in it, that whoever built that, the people that built that, something inside them was amazing, because everybody all over the world is attracted to that place, and it was from love. It was built out of love, right? Apparently, in today's money, it's $11 billion to build it. So he almost exhausted. But India was so rich. I mean, India was one of the richest countries in the world, and it will return, inshallah. Why not? But also with Muslims. Just, yeah. I mean, I think the biggest tragedy of India is the Muslims never indigenized fully, because the court was always a Persian court. So the Mughal were always seen as kind of invaders. And that's why Hindutva, it recognizes Buddhism, because Buddhism is from Mother India. It recognizes Jainism, because it's from Mother India. It recognizes Sikhism even though Sikhism is heavily influenced by Muslims. But it doesn't recognize Christianity or Islam, because it sees them as alien religion. And one of the genius of the Muslims is wherever they went, they indigenized. They always indigenize. So every Muslim culture has its own dress. They didn't make everybody look like Arabs or speak like Arabs. Arabic was the language of our learning, and it becomes the lingua franca, to use that term. It was the language that we were all able to speak to each other with. So Ibn Khaldun or Ibn Battuta could go from Tangier and go to Sri Lanka, and he would be able to communicate with people. So it was like French used to be the diplomatic language. Everybody spoke French. Now it's English. English has become the global language that people speak with. So, but there's the idea of Arabizing people is very alien to the early Islam. They didn't do that. In fact, Sayyid al-Mawaq al-Abdari, he says, he's one of the last great Andalusian scholars. He says that all the hadiths about man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum are to the Arabs. They don't apply to the Ajam. In other words, the Arabs were not, all the ones that warn about dressing and things like that, he said it was all for the Arab not to become somebody else, to maintain their Arabian identity, because they have a quality that's very important. Their language and their adat, they have a lot of good qualities. The best qualities of the Arabs have spread all over the Muslim world, because generosity is a quality of the Prophet ﷺ, but it was also a profound quality of his people. So wherever the Muslims went, because of their generosity, even a culture who would not necessarily be a generous culture became generous by taking on the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ, which are Muslim qualities, but they're also some of them are Arabian qualities.